I'm a man. I don't read these things. The hell is this? What is this?
Oh, the map.
The fuck's a map? Here's our second most requested and quite possibly the hardest to do episode of Metafix. The map episode! Where we talk about the map. And your choice of map. Okay. When choosing your map, you have to be the one who rolled higher. So generally we're going to assume that you're playing a theme team, or you just happen to roll really well against another opponent. In a 300-point game, it's not really unfeasible for a person without a theme team to win the dice roll, because, you know, sometimes there's just that bad roll. You know, if a guy rolls a 2, he's got 3 characters, he's still only got a 5. If he rolls a 3, he's got 3 characters, he's still only got a 6. The odds are actually kind of in the favor of the person who needs to roll higher than a 6 if you do actual probabilities on this, when you include the values of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Anyway, off on a tangent of probabilities, which is probably going to be the next topic that somebody's going to ask me to do, is dealing with probabilities and how to use Perplex. I think I just accidentally wrote an episode. Yeah. So, this will be in 2 realms. We're going to talk about event maps, and we're going to talk about choosing a map for generic tournaments. So with event maps, let's talk about the recent ABX. And there are a couple of maps. There's only 4 of them, so I don't need more than... Oh, that's a Legion map. You know, you think you have a nice organized filing system for your maps, and then, you know, you have kids or a wife, and it all goes to hell.
Hey.
Oh, she heard that. She wasn't very approving. 1 to gore, 1 to gore. You know what? We don't need to go over all of them. Actually, let's even talk about the last month's map. There are subtle differences in this that a lot of people probably didn't take into effect. First of all, I want to point out the surface of the moon was a very wide open map, but you had the dips. Now, because of the must-have map rules of characters ignoring elevated, the dips were walkable and usable by anybody. And this was an important fact when coming across the other side of the board, because you have a realm where you, as long as you have like moving attackers, you've got a place to hide your figures. And there's some teams that are out there that don't have a great deal of moving attackers, and you're going to do very well against teams like that. I personally, I went native on a different venue, because I did actually qualify for a second month 4, but they were playing by the official rules, and the prize was Phoenix Buster. So yes, I did get a Phoenix Buster in this tournament. I placed second, going 3-0. I lost on points. Lost first place on points because in my second round, some rules got alleviated for a younger fella who came in with Cull Borson and Death's Head. Another story altogether. I only managed to kill his Death's Head, and that got me second place. So I made effective use of the moon map, because I was using Hope's the White Phoenix Hope, who has hypersonic, so she's got a great abundance of move and attack. I had Orion, who would use the craters as staging points to move out of with his running shot and psychic blast, as well as hiding places to sit and heal back up health. And then I would hide I hide all my characters in these crevices or these craters, and made very effective use. And it managed to even actually help me in the sense of knocking down a Brother Voodoo. Part of choosing your map is knowing your team almost as well as your opponent's team. And that's the hard part. Knowing what your opponent's team is going to do sometimes can completely catch you off guard. And I can't promise, like, this is, the reason I say this is the hardest thing to do is there's no set strategy for every kind of map. I mean, there's a couple obvious points, you know, if you're using a very stealth-heavy team, Krakoa and the Garden from No Man's Lands are your prime choices because you get a lot of stealth. But the abundance of ignores hindering terrain makes your team's stealth a non-issue. So you have to then take a look at your opponent's team and say, okay, since he's ignoring hindering, what can I do to alleviate the fact that I've lost that, and then choose the map in that sense. Where I'm talking is where they've got ignore or hindering terrain, well, your disadvantage is in the range. So if your stealthy team is coming from the Batman team ability or alternate move and attack abilities, you want to be using something like the Moon that has hiding spaces that aren't necessarily hindering terrain and can really help you in that sense. So that's something to think about as well. There are some obvious choices. I know some of you have thought about this. I've even done it on camera, so you guys can go look back at that. During the Fear Itself map, they gave out a Pacific Ocean map. By all means, if you're playing an Atlantis team, make your opponent swim for a little while. Everybody's going to ignore water terrain. You know, I'm searching for this. It should be having this over here. I'm reaching over the camera. But yeah, by all means, throw the Pacific Ocean at your opponent. It's still modern age. Bizarro World will throw any opponent through a loop who's not, who's got characters with huge bases. That's another thing to pay attention to, is if your opponent has big bases on their characters, like a Colossal or something like that, you throw Bizarro World at them, they're gone through a loop, and they're going to be confused with all the different elevations that are all over the place. So as long as you're paying attention to them. Rule number one of a map, though, when you're starting it out, know the elevations. The modern age maps are the easiest to do because they have that numbering system, but it also makes it a little tricky where you'll see a piece of elevated in the middle of the map, and all of a sudden you go and occupy that elevated, or what you think is elevated terrain, but because you weren't paying attention, you just realize that it's lower terrain, and you put a giant in there who's getting shot in the face now. So those are things to be aware of when you are choosing these maps. Other things to be aware of is special rules. Now, special rules, for the most part, don't take a great deal of effect in very many local area tournaments, but high-level tournaments, for the most part, they do play by it. I actually watched, there's a video out there in the ether. I believe the guys at Glass Cabinet might have filmed it. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong on this. But I watched a game where Krakoa won. Yeah, I didn't stutter. Krakoa was, because of its rules, very effective. I just found the Fear Itself map collection now, too. Krakoa was very instrumental in I watched somebody just lose to a map, and it almost made me weep, to be brutally honest, because, I mean, nobody wants to lose to a map. Yeah. Having maps out, obviously, is a hard thing for this particular episode, because I try to keep the metafix truncated. Want to try to keep it short, and these are all the little maps. This is a little discovery for me. You get to watch me go through the maps and go, oh, hey, what's that? Yeah, exciting times. Other things to note, there's interesting things like the new Legion of Doom map. Much like the Pacific Ocean map, if you use the outdoor portion of it, there's a lot of water terrain to take advantage of. So if you have a character who does have bonuses on water terrain or swims, you can actually be gaining some advantages. The water is not as uber effective as, say, hindering terrain in and of itself, because a lot of characters that will ignore hindering also ignore water. But knowing the map is instrumental to a certain degree, but you have about 12 seconds in set map events, like especially events like Avengers vs. X-Men, or War of Light upcoming, or the previous Fear Itself event. You don't have as much time to learn the map unless somebody was nice enough to put it out on HC Realms. So you have pretty much one round to learn the map size that you chose after looking at both sides. So yeah, you can imagine how nutso that can be for trying to quickly learn Latveria. That's the one I'm missing. I don't know where that went. I know we have it. So, like I said, this is one of the harder ones to talk about because map choice, it can win a game, but not all the time. A lot of the game is won in the game. Map choice can get a huge advantage, but both figures can take advantage of these things. A lacking hindering terrain can be solves by blowing up blocking terrain and blowing up or throwing the right items out. This is probably a good time to talk about how ultra heavy objects don't just benefit teams with super strength. Ultra heavy objects require 4 damage to destroy them, and now that they're basic because of the Captain America set, you've now got a collection of ultra heavies that you can field on the board and use as a hiding spot, and your opponent has now got to deal 4 damage to that. So you've got to commit a really big attacker, and in a 300-point game, a really big attacker at 4 damage is not very forthcoming. I mean, it's a little bit more forthcoming with resources and a plenty and the right number of perplexes, but it doesn't happen as often as we'd like to think it would happen. So a couple things to think about with regards to that is there are terrain creators. If you feel that you don't have the right amount of hindering or a map that lacks hindering because it could really mess up your game, make sure you got some smoke cloud coming. I had a whole rant about smoke cloud a little while ago, so there's some very effective smoke clouders out there. If you feel that a map without blocking terrain is really going to be a hindrance, make sure you're stocking some barrier and create the blocking terrain. Just be aware of what your team needs when choosing your map, and then when you're aware of what your team needs, make sure anything that the map doesn't the map could lack in, you bring, because there are ways of making your own terrain in games. So I think I've rambled on about as much as I can on the map choice and how far it can go. Map choice can win a game, but not 100%. Both players are playing on the same map. One player may know what they want to do with the map, but the other player, a good player, can react to map choices not their strength and make it their strength. So that's all I got to say about that. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We got the Metafix contest is come to a close. We do have one distinct winner. We thought a team was going to make make the final run of the gauntlet outside of one of the teams that did, courtesy of a couple lucky rolls. Don't even look at me like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a different ROC team, because this one did happen to beat an ROC team, and we're going to replay that for you guys. We'll announce the winner in that episode as well, and we'll get in contact with you and get you your Book of Skulls, Sans Scotty's Hammer. Sorry, you gotta get that one on your own. So this has been Metafix, and we'll see you guys later.